Our sportsNOLA.com trivia question of the evening surrounds the New Orleans Saints and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. How many former Saints, players, coaches, and administrators have been inducted in Canton? It's a little bit of a trick question. I'll explain why based upon how the question's phrased. Okay, here's the list. 7. Jim Taylor, Doug Atkins, Earl Campbell, Jim Finks, Hank Stram, Ricky Jackson, and Willie Roaf. But that does not include the likes of Tom Fears and Mike Ditka, both of whom were head coaches for the Saints, but were inducted for what they did elsewhere, obviously. Hank Stram did serve as a head coach of the Saints, got inducted as a coach, whereas Ditka got inducted as a player, and Tom Fears is a player as well. So that's the distinction. If you want to count those two, you got 9. But based on what the Saints are counting, it's 7. So there you have it, just so that you understand. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLA TV, from Premier Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram in New Orleans East I-10 Service Road. It is time now for our hot seat segment where we place Brian Alley Walsh on the hot seat. The one championship game we did not discuss from the divisional games this past weekend was the one where the Indianapolis Colts beat the Denver Broncos, and here's why. Our hot seat segment is all about Peyton Manning. Should Peyton Manning retire, or should he continue in the NFL? Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Trahan, as always. Actually, I posted a story on our website this morning that I hope you go turn and read, and it deals with this exact issue. Based on the past month and this first playoff game, this was not the Peyton Manning that we are accustomed to seeing. A 5-time MVP, a surefire first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. We didn't see that in him the month of December and again Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts. And partly, according to ESPN, Adam Schefter, he played those games with a torn right quad. That would certainly help explain why he had a 3-to-6 touchdown to interception ratio in the last 4 games of the regular season. It would explain why the Broncos relied so heavily on the running game, and would explain why Peyton said he was so thankful to have that off week leading up to this game yesterday. All right, so let's just say that he is injured, all right? You can heal an injury, but what I think will ultimately help him determine whether or not he calls it a career after 15 NFL seasons is this. Will the Broncos GM, John Elway, retain John Fox as head coach? Will Adam Gase, the offensive coordinator, stay with the Broncos staff or take a head coaching job? I think that's what ultimately will help Peyton determine whether or not he's going to come back for a 16th and perhaps last season. Now, he's scheduled to make $19 million next year, this season, coming season, and the following season if he lasts that long. Money's aside, money's not the issue here. It's whether or not he can determine whether or not he wants to play or not. And it's all depending on how that coaching staff plays out over the next few weeks.
Well, I mean, I look at it, after I got through with 15 years, can you keep going? I mean, he done been beat up a lot. He done had the neck surgery and stuff, so now, it's up to him. But I would love to see him at an indoor. I mean, I think right now, when you get old like that, the outdoors really is against him. But I say any kind of way he can come in an indoor stadium, he can play for another 2 or 3 years to be very sharp. But outdoors, the way the weather is, I mean, like Drew Brees, he couldn't go play in an outdoor stadium right now because it's just different for the older guys. So, I think that he'll be great in an indoor facility if he had to play again.
I think that one of the things we really have to look at when it comes to the Peyton situation is what does he have to play for? And I think that's one of the questions that has to be answered in terms of the Denver Broncos. Is this a team that legitimately is going to be able to compete for Super Bowl? If not, what is it there for him to compete for? He is the ultimate competitor, at least one of the top, I would say, 2 or 3 that exists in the NFL right now. And if it isn't something that's going to result in him having another championship, is it worth putting his body through the torture that it obviously is at his age? So, I think that there are a lot of questions surrounding that, but ultimately, I think that Brian's right in terms of having to look at what the coaching staff does, but then also, are they going to be able to field a team that legitimately will be able to contend for a championship next season?
I understand where Ricky's going with his thought process, and it's valid. I think for the most part, for most players, but when you have a quarterback who will be 39 in March, Ricky, You know what? He's an old dog, and he wants to be surrounded by a comfortability zone with guys that he trusts. He doesn't want to go break new ground. He's only got another year or two left. Let's just be honest here. So he wants to stay in Denver. I know where you're coming with the indoor-outdoor thing, but I think as much as that, it's where does he feel comfortable? Does he like his coaching staff? And is that where he wants to end his career? And I think that is. I really do think that if Fox leaves, Gacy leaves, he doesn't get the staff he wants, he's done.
Well, I mean, I think that, 15 years, I think Peyton won 1 or 2 more years.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know he got a whole lot of money, and he made a whole lot of money,
Yeah.
but I think that, just the competitiveness, he don't feel like, he going out on the right foot, so I think he really want another year or 2.
Well, these are all good discussion points, and ultimately it's going to be up to Peyton Manning to make that decision. He turns 39 in March, and incidentally, March is when the league year begins, and he's due $19 million for 2015 once the league year begins. So a decision by Peyton Manning will clearly come before the league year starts, which is on March 9th. So we'll know something here within the next month and a half. And he left the door wide open after the game. He did not say he was coming back. In fact, he said he would give it some serious thought. When you consider from whence he's come and the injury that he incurred and the very, very serious nature of the surgery that he had, to come back and play the way he has truly is remarkable. But it was an interesting point that was raised by Ricky, because I said it at the time, it's not a second guess. I really wondered why he chose Denver, a cold weather city, outdoors, where it really gets difficult when you get into November and beyond. Remember, he had choices, very serious choices, in Arizona and Houston, both of whom would have been good destinations for him and instant contenders had he gone there, both of whom play indoors. The other serious consideration was San Francisco, where the weather's pretty good. And last time I checked, they're not in San Francisco in windy conditions. They're in Santa Clara in a brand new facility with great weather. But he made that decision because of John Elway. Clearly, one guy helped him make that decision, and that's the decision that he made. Now he faces a bigger decision about whether to march on. Ultimately, will he continue? It's all about the health, because of the report by Adam Schefter and ESPN about the torn quad. That explains, to some degree, why he played the way he played over the last half of the season, in particular the past month since he got hurt against St. Louis. But does that explain everything about the lack of arm strength, the ball wobbling, not getting there, the inaccuracy? I don't know that it does. Only he knows, because it's his body, as to whether or not he can play at a high level. And if he cannot, I hope he retires. I really do. Because I want to remember Peyton Manning the way he was, as one of the 5 greatest ever. Back in just a moment to talk college football on WHNO.